So what I was listening to yesterday, they were talking about these surveillance balloons, and I forget how many camera lenses were on these balloons, but they were tethered to the ground. And I don't remember if this was like in a World War II theater or if it was later.
I was going to ask,
or maybe
what era?
This is going to sound ridiculous that I just said maybe World War II, maybe Iraq. I can't remember. Probably Iraq, given like the nature of these cameras they were using.
Okay.
And I think in the conversation, I was listening to them talking about Palantir and like the technology they were using to surveil.
Yeah.
So when you said flock cameras, that's where my mind went.
So it's in that it's defense, police departments, it's surveillance cameras, but they're popping up everywhere. And what's interesting is, so I'm driving out of the neighborhood, and we don't have them in our neighborhood yet, but I didn't know about it till a friend of mine said, oh, they put up flock cameras in my neighborhood. And I was like, what is that? And then this is probably about a year ago. And he said, yeah, they run your license plate every time you go past them.
That's nice. Yeah.
And I was like, and I went over to visit his house and like had to drive past these cameras that are scanning my license plate. And yeah, that was my thought, is I would not want to live in a neighborhood where like, so you're watching me every time where I'm going. So that was my gut reaction. But then today, I'm driving past an apartment complex, and I noticed they both have flock cameras in front. And I thought the same thing, like, because what's happening now is there's a movement on X and other platforms of people who are going out and cutting them down and like, putting lasers in them and disabling them. And there was a statement by the CEO of Flock that he said, basically he called these people like Antifa terrorist, but it's obvious that that's not, like, the people on X who are going around doing this. They're right-wing, conservative, libertarian-minded people who are like, I do not want you, I don't consent to you. There was a video yesterday I saw pop up of a guy had something on a pole, and it was a demonstration. He had a sign out there saying this is unconstitutional, and he's holding up this thing and blocking the camera. Mm-hmm. And the police are there harassing him, about to arrest him. But then another guy driving by is like, hey, good for you. And he's like, hey, what's your name? I'm going to come bail you out if they arrest you. And he tells him his name, and he's like, good for you. I'm going to follow these guys and I'm going to bail you out. And then he's yelling at the cops like, fuck flock cameras and fuck this. It's unconstitutional. So it's there's like this, that would be the next podcast. Maybe we'll go deep on what flock cameras are and is that constitutional. But then as I'm driving, I started to really pay attention and tried to count every camera that I drove past coming from my house to this studio. And even when I pulled up in front of the studio, I knew that I had my camera on the front of the studio. And then I looked across the street as you were getting out. That's why I was laughing. I was like, camera, 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 camera. I mean, what are we doing? we are, I mean, I probably easily drove past 100 cameras on the way here.
Yeah. It makes me think of the first time I thought about this, like, as heavily as we're talking about it, was the Super Bowl. There was a commercial for Ring cameras, and the CEO's walking through a neighborhood. He's like, I'm your buddy. I do the Ring cameras. You know me. I'm your friend. I keep you safe. And then he's like, have you ever thought about how you might go about finding your dog if your dog gets lost? You would be sad if your dog got lost. Well, I'm your buddy. I'm going to help you find your dog. And then all of a sudden it cuts to like how this network of Ring cameras all over the whole neighborhood.
Everywhere, yeah.
Your neighbors, whether they like it or not, are going to help you find your dog. And I was like, oh, I don't like this at all.
Yeah. Well, that's my gut. Okay, so then I'm thinking about that. And then I couldn't help but think like, well, I'll be damned. We don't have that security footage of 9/11 still. Like,
yeah,
apparently a 747 or whatever it was flew right into the Pentagon. And I've only seen like 2 blurry images of something that does not look at all like an airplane flying into the Pentagon.
How is 20
years ago, but that's been my core. So as the conspiracy dad side of it was like, Can anyone seriously believe that they would say at our national security headquarters, there was one camera working. It wasn't even, high res or high frame, and it was low frame rate. It was just taking a picture every second or so. And they said, this is a jetliner flew into this building, and that is the only imagery we ever captured of it. And that's just not possible. I mean, I know it was 20 years ago, but no, there would be at least 100 cameras surveilling every. I mean, it's our defense headquarters. Are you kidding?
Well, I mean, it also kind of goes into what we were talking about on the last episode, where you're talking about this day of disclosure, and you go, why didn't they just upload the files to Rumble or YouTube or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, so much of what we're having a problem with this, like, appearance of, or like they're kind of trying to act like they're disclosing so much. It's that, like, how is it you guys are only getting these grainy, weird videos? Like, can't you just call the CEO of Ring and have him get somebody's neighbor's footage?
Well, that's the constant. It's so weird that it always comes back to that, is that, well, but you haven't seen what we've seen, and how long are we going to say, okay, fair enough, we haven't seen, like, they have to eventually. Did we talk about the T-Rex analogy on the last podcast?
I think so.
So this is kind of what we're going at today. So anyway, let's just table flock cameras.
Yeah.
That we'll do surveillance state analysis on the next one, but
that's gonna mess me up.
It's wild to think how much surveillance we all have accepted. But then also the flip side of it, that there's certain things that we just can't get to the bottom of, even though it's like, we know that there's footage of this. We know that there's video footage in an FBI office of the Oklahoma City bombing of Timothy McVeigh pulling up in the truck and blowing the building up, but you've never seen it and you're never going to see it. And it's like, that's just, anyway, so that'll be this topic of the next podcast. But we wanted to revisit today, we talked about Disclosure Day on the last podcast, and I had suggested that for people to really kind of appreciate how quickly this subject has escalated from being a fringe topic to like pretty normal congressional hearings, people just kind of accepting that, oh, of course, there must be aliens visiting Earth, to go back and watch James Corbett's podcast / documentary called How to Fake an Alien Invasion from about, it was like 10, 12 years ago.
Yep.
Anyway, and so the analogy that I had thought of, so the other day I was at my dentist office and I love my dentist. She's great. She's a friend, and she kind of thinks like me. I mean, she's a normie in the sense that she's a dentist, but then we started talking about consciousness, and I was like, yeah, we don't even know what it is. Like, I basically said, I don't think, we can get, there's a lot of things that we can't even really begin to understand if we can't understand like what's going on up here, how this is even possible. And, oh gosh, where was I going with that? Oh, so yeah, then like for like 30, 40 minutes, like the whole office is like gathered around, and I'm friends with her, so I'm comfortable just ranting, but I'm ranting like full conspiracy dad. Like I'm
mixed company. Yeah.
It's jumping from subject to subject. I'm talking about telepathy tapes. I'm talking about like, Orc OR, the Penrose hammer off. Like this is all a receiver. I'm talking about Donald Hoffman, and like, we don't even have the tools to perceive reality. And then it gets into aliens.
I've seen you do this, so I can picture this. I think pretty accurately.
And they're all like young ladies, like the dental hygienists.
Yeah.
Like gathering.
I can picture them going home to their young husbands.
And they're looking at me like I'm just nuts. But then my friend who's the dentist, their boss, she's like, oh yeah, no, you're right. And I'm like,
can you imagine being a nice young dental assistant?
You're walking around the corner in that.
And you're starting to rethink not only the fabric of reality, but on a very basic level, like, I don't know if I trust, like, I think maybe the person I work for is kooky.
Yeah.
Like she was talking to this weird dude about a lot of strange things.
And agreeing with me.
Yeah, and she acted like this was not crazy.
We agree about everything except for about 10, 15 years I've been telling her to get the fluoride out of the drinking water.
What does she say about that?
She doesn't buy any of it. She thinks it's totally, fluoride, whatever. And I'm like,
That's what they told you to
Well,
believe
she
in
gets
dental
all of her
school,
information from the ADA, and it's like, is it a neurotoxin? Yes. I've even sat her down and said that, like, just, and she still won't budge on it, but I'm like, yes. Should you ingest neurotoxins at an unidentifiable level? Like, you don't know. If I said, how much fluoride is in your body right now? Well, there's no way to calculate it because it's in the drinking water, but we don't know how much is in the drinking water. It's in the food that we, grew with the drinking water.
Yeah.
And so that just seems like a simple argument to me. It's a neurotoxin. Should you ingest it? If you just change the argument to lead, you would say no.
Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Don't
Yeah.
ingest lead at an undisclosed amount, just blindly. Like, it's the only quote medical thing that we do where we just indiscriminately ingest as much. No one even knows. No one has any idea how much fluoride is in their body. They just keep telling you to drink it. But that's actually changing because I think that there's some Supreme Court cases coming up where they're actually going to probably stop fluoridating the drinking water. I digress, though. I mean, it's easy to get off.
While we're talking about it, I was just thinking, like, there has to be more. Well, I don't know how much, but I just thought, like, there has to be more of a reason for the fluoride than just keeping your teeth strong.
We didn't. This is a whole other podcast, but
okay, maybe we table that one as well.
When I say fluoride, what do you think they're putting in the water? Like, what do you think it actually is? Is there a fluoride guy that goes around and dumps fluoride into the water? And what does that look like?
What I'm picturing is like part of like whatever our water processing plant.
Yeah.
There's just a mechanism that
there's like a guy.
Like,
do you think it's like a big vat of like calcium or something, and they're just like pharmaceutical grade calcium? I don't
picture a guy. Like, you ever watch How It's Made? I'm just picturing, like, first it goes through the screen that filters out the rocks and the diapers and whatever else is in the water.
Yeah.
And then, like,
at some point, it's like
they boil the water and then it shoots through and then, like,
a little chloride.
And then now I'm imagining the narrator say, and then, before the water is reintroduced into the plumbing of the city, we add this mix of chemicals, like chlorine and I would imagine fluoride's in the formula of whatever recipe that the little sprayer goes.
So do you have any sense of where do they get the fluoride? What is fluoride and where do you get it?
The dentist is the one selling.
No, it's really weird because it's from like industrial waste. It's like those big smokestacks at a lot of these like industrial factories making different things, not everything, but they basically, they're taking all of the industrial waste from these plants and they're turning it into fluoride and dumping it back in the water. So it's not like a pharmaceutical, like that's what I mean when people think of it as like, oh, you're taking a vitamin or you're taking a supplement.
Right.
It's like, no, they're taking the toxic waste from the plant and they're like repurposing it for your drinking water because somebody realized that the topical application of fluoride does help reduce cavities, but ingesting it does nothing. It doesn't, so it's like what you're drinking. It's like, it's going to splash on my teeth for a second.
Yeah. I don't even like,
and it's like, oh, okay. That's going to help me not have cavities. What does it do when it gets down here?
Yeah.
Like why?
Yeah. How good is it for your liver? I'd like to know that.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess, I think I assumed, now that you're talking about it, I thought it was like a mineral.
Yeah,
like they mined it out of a cave somewhere. It's where they get the battery stuff for the iPhones.
No, it's literally toxic waste from chemical plants, and they just repurpose it. And it's probably like a Tony Soprano character somewhere who has like a waste, like he like literally it's like his like gig that he's
that's his on paper income is being a fluoride
and the guy. Reason you don't see it going away is because he pays a lot of lobbyists to make sure that we keep using fluoride because that's his gig and that's his
So somebody's listening to this. We skipped over dad hacks.
Yeah.
Which we don't need to do a dad hack, but I was thinking if I were listening to this in the car and I like dad jokes, when you said where did fluoride come, I thought Florida. But I hate being the guy that tells dad jokes. So for you in your car, if you were like thinking I missed it, that's not what happened. I decided not to do that. Yeah, but I saw it. It's there.
Anyway, so we could do a fluoride episode, but that's...
Can I tell you what I thought about on the way in?
Oh, yeah, please
I
do.
think it does kind of transition into this disclosure thing. I was listening to a little bit of our episode last time on the way here to kind of refresh my memory. And one thing you said was it's sort of like, how do you win the chess game? Because you like step off of the board.
Yes.
Right. And it's an infinite number of enemies at some point. And so I paused the podcast for a little bit and I'm just driving in silence thinking about, I don't think they did a sequel to Independence Day.
They did. It was terrible.
Oh, okay. Well,
Chris Hemsworth, I think.
Okay.
It was bad.
What was the premise of it?
You know, it was so bad. I didn't even finish it. I got halfway through and was like, this is just not good.
I would venture to guess the
They're
aliens
coming back again, I guess.
That's my point. Is like, so I would imagine the premise is something like, because like we won the day against the aliens in Independence Day.
Yeah, but there's got to be other...
They didn't leave and go like, well, I guess that's that. We can't mess with the humans. They're going to get more of their buddies and come back.
They have spaceships. They came here in the first place.
Right. So I was just imagining like Bill Pullman on like what would be something like, what do we have after World War II? All the nations have a...
Oh, yeah, like the United Nations.
Yeah. I was picturing there would be some kind of a cohort of nation leaders, like a one world government.
Well, have you seen the quotes from the former Israeli space director a couple years ago talking about the Galactic Alliance with all these different aliens?
Well, there you go. Yeah. Oh, no, but I have heard of this. Yeah.
So, yeah, that like there's, or Paul Hellyer from former Canadian defense minister. I mean, that's a whole thing. Like so what was happening to you on the way in though?
I just started thinking about like what would be the sequel to Independence Day and not knowing that.
That's why it's a perfect chess move because you can always move the goalpost and now here's the enemy and now here's the enemy.
Yeah.
Well, look how many stars are up there.
Because
we can just pick enemies all day.
July 5th, the POTUS character, is that Bill Pullman that I keep saying?
Yeah.
He's on the phone with the other world leaders and pretty quickly we're starting a new United Nations that deals specifically with this alien thing. And I just was picturing like, well, when we pick back up in the sequel, that's probably where it starts, is at their little congressional meeting of dudes like, well, the aliens, surprise, they're coming back again. Good thing we got this. And then, I was picturing like, like camera network. And I thought, they would have to like, if you had this kind of like a United Nations deal, you could implement control mechanisms of like, well, our protocol when we see a pending alien attack, we've talked about it now because we had a bunch of meetings in Sweden, and what we do is we shut down all the traffic. It's not safe to be outside, so everybody stay home. And we know you're not. We know if you're not staying home
because we have scanning your license all over the place.
Exactly. And so like just on the way in, like I wasn't thinking specifically about flock cameras, but I was thinking about like that, what was that movie that Ethan Hawke was in with Julia Roberts recently where we don't know exactly what the thing was, but Barack Obama was the producer.
I never saw that.
Well, all these Teslas were like programmed to,
surveil?
Well, they weren't programmed to surveil. They were programmed to cause accidents on the highway to like gridlock the traffics. But I just started thinking like, oh man, more and more, all of our cars got the GPS and the OnStar and Teslas. I think there's self-driving.
I think there's like legislation coming up that like they're going to be required to have a device that the car can shut down if it wants to and not let you drive.
One of my barber, he loves his wife's Lexus because it drives for him. And when he told me that, I was like, I don't know if I like that, because he was like, yeah, man, it watches your eyes the whole time. And if it doesn't see you making eye contact and watching the road,
I think that we need to start looking for like 1998 to 2002 Tahoes and Chevys and like things
for sure.
I've always said I think we should have stopped in 98. I think we peaked in 98 and it was like the perfect balance of
we had seat heaters,
technology and just
remote start.
Yeah, like
that's all you need.
You could you had a digital footprint enough without everyone being in your business all the time. It was before social media. But you young kids out there won't understand that the world that we lived in, and that, I thought about that too coming in, that like we've always said, like the reason we're doing this podcast is like obviously to make a lot of money, and just simply like I would like my kids one day to think back or to go back and be able to listen, like, okay, this is the wacky stuff my dad and his friend thought. And boy, this subject could, like, what is this going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now? Like, how are they going to listen to this podcast if they're even allowed to listen to this podcast? Like, it's a crazy subject. Back to the dentist office, like the point that I was trying to make, the reason I started ranting is I'm trying to bring these young ladies up to speed about what is going on. And they're completely out to lunch. And they're not, that's not a dig on them. Everyone is out to lunch. And what I was trying to say was like, I know I sound crazy, but I'm calling balls and strikes. I'm trying to be as just like down the middle. This is what people are saying. This is what's happening. I'm not in charge of anything. But the analogy I was asking about was the T-Rex one. So that's how I explained it to him. I said, what's happening right now in our government is it's equivalent to if the government, think Pete Hegseth walks out to the podium at a White House press briefing and he says, listen, we have perfected the genetic technology that Michael Crichton wrote about in Jurassic Park. We've been working on it in secret for like 60 years. And we have this technology now, and we have reproduced a full-grown T-Rex. And everybody in the room would be like, I'm blown away. Like, are you serious? We have a T-Rex. He's like, yes, we have a full-grown T-Rex. It works. It's awesome. And everyone would say, can we see the T-Rex? And they go, you can't. It's in a facility out at Area 51 in the desert, and it's top secret. Nobody can see the T-Rex. And we like nag them for like a decade, and then we're like, let us see the like, what is the harm in showing us the T-Rex if this is just part of reality that we've discovered this technology? And they go, all right, here's some grainy photos of the T-Rex. You can barely make out what it is, but that's all you're getting. You can't actually see the T-Rex.
Well, probably he would bring another government official with him.
Yeah.
And go, ask this guy, he saw it.
Yeah.
And then,
And then
that guy would go, well, I didn't see it, but I did talk to another guy who saw it.
I know,
Yeah.
and that's Tim
And
Burchett.
those guys work on the, exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly. They do. He's very credible. Trust me. I know this guy, and we have a T-Rex. If that was what was going on, people at a pretty quick point, I think people would go, bullshit, you don't have a T-Rex. Like, you can't sit here and expect us to believe as wild of a claim of that as it is. But the thing is, what they're claiming, what's actually happening with the alien invasion, I mean, that's even way more like, fantastical than a T-Rex. T-Rex. We know that a T-Rex existed. We've seen their body parts, their bones. We don't know exactly what it looked like, but that's a thing. Like, we know that a T-Rex lived on this planet, went extinct. And if they brought it back, we understand Michael Crichton's point. We could even like imagine like, okay, that's amazing. We have this genetic technology. We sucked it out of a little mosquito and then we put it in an elephant and now we got a T-Rex. But the alien thing, it's like, what evidence do we have of that? I have no evidence. I mean, and that's what we're going to talk about today is that like, it's a chess move. It's obviously could be a chess move when you think about faking an alien invasion. If that's what's going on, if this is a psyop of some kind, and it's the ultimate chess move to like bring the world together, just like Reagan was quoted saying, and but maybe not, because there's also weird religious things going on. If you watch Disclosure Day, again, it's a very religious movie, very anti-religious movie, but it's very like that's the point that they're getting at, that this is, that this is related to our religious beliefs. And I just think I think all of that comes together, and I've said it to you, I think a few times. It's like when people are receiving information, and that, like, based on my understanding of how humans have always reacted in my life to everything, but if they get information and they don't react rationally to that information, what is going on there, because I think you have to assume something is going on. Like if I told you the T-Rex story and you went, yeah, probably, and then you just went back to work, you'd be like, really? You're just going to believe that they have a T-Rex with no evidence? You have any evidence of that? Same thing with this. We have 12 spaceships from other planets, and we've identified 4 non-human intelligent species, and they've been visiting Earth for a long time. And everyone just goes, yeah, probably. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I'd have to assume you've been, hypnotized, that there's some through media, I guess that's Corbett's point, is that this is not, he starts out that documentary with like a kind of, he's being coy and saying like, we're going to talk about something that's just it's very top secret and you can't even talk about it. And then he just plays a montage of like newscaster after newscaster of everything for decades, just not shutting up about the UFOs and constantly talking about it. So it's clearly not a verboten subject. You know what I mean? But yeah, how long are we going to believe that there's a T-Rex before we just go, I'm going to have to see a T-Rex to really believe this story? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Do you think that that they're working on something that makes it more believable, like some kind of, like there's talk of these hologram machines, that sort of thing. Like, do you think that they're waiting to get the hologram machines effective enough to where we can see some kind of UFO activity firsthand? Like, and that's just an example of like possibly what they would do to get us to believe before we saw something palpable.
Like, go back to the chess game. So if you were in charge of the world and it was like, this is a chess move, you would have to do it in a way that you knew it would be believed. Mm-hmm. And then you think, well, how would you do that? And I think the only way that you could do that is plausible deniability, meaning that the people that represent whatever it is you're pushing have to truly believe it. And the people that knew it was not real would have to be dead and gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it would have to be a long con. It would have to be somebody back in 45 to 47 sat down at the military, industrial, whatever, and said, look, this is how we're going to control the whole world, but it's going to take about 100 years to pull it off. And it's be a multi-generational thing. It's going to start with this thing in Roswell, and then eventually it's going to be out at Phoenix, Arizona. And then eventually it's going to be in Rendlesham Forest. And then eventually it's going to be, at aerial school in Zimbabwe. And they're going to plan these fake encounters, Betty and Barney Hill. And, and then eventually when you get to Pete Hegseth and Tim Burchett and all these guys today, they're useful idiots. They just believe they're just reading all of these classified documents and going, wow, my God, for 100 years, they've been having these encounters. I'm not saying that's what's going on. I'm just saying like, that is what you'd have to do. Because you're talking about control of the entire planet. And what would that be worth, 100-year psyop? I think so. I mean, if I'm trying to trick the entire world into believing something.
Yeah. One thing that crossed my mind is like, who thinks that far ahead? But I'm more and more thinking about, well,
I do.
Well, good for you. But also like, I do think that like when I think of wealthy people, and I don't mean just like the Rockefellers and like the oligarchy, I just mean people that I know day to day that have more wealth than me. More often than not, I find out that like they had wise parents who invested, and like the idea of legacy comes to mind. Like, and like my wife and I did our estate planning a couple of years ago. And so the point being, like, I've just kind of recently opened my eyes to the idea that like, oh yeah, if you're a wise patriarch of a family, you're thinking not just like, wisdom to some degree is like getting better at thinking longer term, right? Like we think of somebody as foolish if they think very short term, you
Yeah.
know, like I want the reward right now. So like to the degree that you can think further and further out, the more wise you are. And so it should be no surprise that like something like the Bush family, right? Like the cross with Skull and Bones
Yeah.
types, those families have been grooming generations to like
Yeah, and
think way out.
I don't think it's just a family grooming it. I think they literally are part of esoteric organizations that have been grooming them to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and like, so I guess the point I'm making is like what you just said, like these like deep, you know, crazy conspiracy theory organizations that are on an island somewhere, you know, with some dude like an Epstein. That can sound crazy if you're a young lady working in a dentist office. But I think the kind of the way that I would try to bridge the gap to someone like that is like, okay, well, but you do know somebody that went to private school. Have you ever met their parents? Okay. Were their parents like foolish? Did they buy a bunch of silly toys, or did their parents invest in a lot of different things? And did their parents use the estate from their family to like leverage that for future moves so that their kids could be set up, so that their kids could go to a nice college, so that their grandkids could be set up? Like, okay, now just like keep expanding that out and remember that like, you know, this country was, you know, was here. We're a relatively new country. You know, like think of like royalty prop for the monarchy before that. So like generations of people have been thinking about how can I leverage moves to
It's
go.
a
Like,
it's a human. Yeah, what you're describing is it is a human thing. It's not ridiculous at all to think that on a very domestic level, there's a lot of preparation and force. Like people do that. They plan. They conspire. I mean, a family conspires to say we're going to save for retirement and we're going to, you know, invest in a business or whatever. And so, is it crazy to think that governments do that? To think that intelligence agencies protecting or serving governments would do that? And I'm just saying that I think you can't say it's impossible.
no, and
I mean, you could say, you know, it's in my mind, it's entirely possible because the lengths to which we always go back to the Kennedy thing, but you go like, that's crazy. Would they really launch 100-year psyop to trick the entire planet into thinking that we're being visited by aliens just so they could control us with all the flock cameras? And, you know, it's like, guys, they shot the president in his face right in front of his wife and with cameras rolling and everyone watching. And they still have not given you all of that. There's still like files that are classified on that. They have not explained exactly what happened to that. It becomes obvious that like, well, if they're willing to do that, I think it's not strange at all that they'd be willing to fake an alien invasion. I mean, or any of the other stuff that we talk about. If they're willing to, you know, dose people unwittingly with LSD and, you know, film them in brothels and, you know, drive them out of their minds so they jump off of a building and kill themselves. Like they've done that. They absolutely did that. So like, would they fake an alien invasion? I mean, they installed cameras onto cats' brains so they could try to spy on Castro. You know, they made fake birds that are actually surveillance drones. They have, I mean, that whole thing that birds aren't real, like that. That's because there are some birds that aren't real. It's not that birds aren't real; it's that there are birds that aren't real. And you can look up, I've listened to CIA officers explain how cool these things are and that, yes, they have birds that looks like a bird. It's not a bird. It's probably an advanced flock drone just watching you because there's all these libertarians cutting down the poles and not letting them have their cameras out there. So, okay, we can pivot here. Actually, I'm going to take a pee break and then we're going to come right back and we're going to pivot to, if that's not what's going on, what an even darker twist of what might be going on. So be right back.
This is hardly, I mean, this is a more formal version of a guy told me one time.
Yeah. So back from the pee break. So to pivot this conversation, what, you know, trying to understand like what might be going on. First of all, I think we've established, and we don't need to establish, it's been established. There's something going on. There's a lot of, UFOs. Are UFOs a thing? Well, it's congressional hearings. There's a lot of people invested in UFOs are a thing. What exactly are UFOs? Corbett's take is, how to fake an alien invasion. Is it possible that is that possible as a thing? Like, could somebody be trying to fake an alien invasion for whatever reason to try to, control us, control our thoughts? I think he makes a case, and I just like we said, like I think it's possible. It would take a lot of money. It would probably take a lot of time. That is the way I would do it. It would be not a fast thing. And then, well, what if the thing that's been coming up at a lot of these people that are pushing the subject is that, well, maybe that's not what's going on at all. Maybe it's not aliens, and they've pivoted to the metaphysical. And pull up, if you even just chat GPT, look up the quote, or you can just Google J.D. Vance, his quote on the Benny Johnson show about what UFOs are, and just read it for the fine people of the Conspiracy Dad audience. And as you look that up, I'll just say like that the thing that you hear a lot of people saying that I still find concerning is that we're not being visited by little green men from other planets, even though that's all we're going to talk about is 4 different non-intelligent, non-human intelligences and 12 different spaceships from other planets. Did you find the quote?
The quick blurb is, I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons.
Which, when you just say that seems kind of like whatever, but you're not the vice president of the United States of America.
Man, and let me tell you something. Sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
But it's just, I listened to J.D. Vance on Rogan, and they get into this for a second.
Yeah.
And J.D. Vance, I think a lot of that interview was him trying to temper just the population in general, but specifically that comment, I think Rogan's like, now you think they're demons, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, now I'm just saying, like, what do you call something that you can't explain? Like he kind of underplayed it a little bit because I think that, like people's reaction to that was like, whoa, man. The thing is, right around that point in the interview, I thought of you because Rogan's like, well, what do you think about this alien stuff or whatever? And J.D. Vance's answer was basically like, hey, man, I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, because he's pushing his book.
Well,
I heard him say a similar thing where he's like, yeah, I know. I said when I got into office, that was one of the first things I wanted to do was get into those files, and I'm just really busy. And it's like, what are we talking about? Like you're saying you're talking about aliens from another planet, and you're too busy pushing your autobiography to get in there and actually just read some stuff.
Exactly. So I understand that we're in the middle of a bit of a thing with Iran right now. So that should
kind of his fault too,
right? So you should deal with that. But what are you doing farting around on a bro podcast? Trying to sell books,
or like what? You don't have interns, like you don't have people that you could say, go read all those files and you tell me if there's anything serious in there
what's
about
for
aliens.
real about this.
No, that's bullshit. That's
but I guess my point is just like kind of what you said in the past is, I mean, aside from this Iran war, what could possibly be the most important thing if there are aliens that we're having to deal with, like as a civilization?
I mean, he's an example there of like, either he's being intentionally misleading, which is probably the case, or he's not responding to information in the way that he should.
Which is what you were saying earlier. Like
he's hypnotized. Yeah. And so the idea though that, and if anybody interested in this is a great book to read about it, called Cracks in the Great Wall. And it's by Charles Upton. And I don't agree with everything he says because we have different religious beliefs, definitely. But the idea that these are benevolent, creatures from another planet coming to visit us, the evidence just isn't there, because it's like he kind of goes through a lot of the supposed cases and like, well, what are they doing? There's some of the cases where people might say, oh, well, they enlightened me, or they told me, it was kind of a positive experience. But for the vast majority of them, they're getting probed, and they're like, they're getting the things that are happening to them we would consider criminal, and not in a violation of who these people are. And also, for J.D. Vance and many other people, I've heard lots of the congressional hearings, even David Grush, and people that have supposedly seen behind the veil. They've looked at the real evidence.
They've been in the skiffs.
And they think that it's interdimensional creatures, that it's not aliens from another planet, that it is something that's been on Earth for a long time, and it's probably what a lot of the religious biblical stories were referring to as angels and demons. And that seems in our modern minds to be like a crazy thing. But back to the evidence, like the T-Rex, like, do I have evidence of green men from another planet visiting Earth? No. I mean, a handful of people have claimed that, but I don't. That's all you got, witness. But do we have evidence of angels or demons interacting with people? Well, like literally every religious group, they might vary a little bit, but everyone, like for all of human history, everyone has believed in angels and demons. You know what I mean? Like, even if I didn't believe in it, or you didn't believe in it, or if you did, it doesn't matter. The point is, humans have believed in angels for a very long time. And that's actually not a weird thing to say if you're taking in like the history of humanity and saying, well, yeah, I don't know. The Bible is full of stories of people being possessed by something that's outside of themselves. And the Christian view would be that it's a non-human intelligence. That's technically what they would call it. And now you have government people saying, like J.D. Vance, kind of flippantly saying, they're probably demons. And you go, does Pete Hegseth think that they're demons? Because if you go to the Pentagon's website, they're not saying it's demons. They're saying it's aliens from another planet. Again, that could be a chess move. Because it's so like, how do you verify anything? Like, what are you and I supposed to do with this information? If you say, yeah, I'm vice president of the United States, I'm supposedly read in on a lot of top secret stuff, and I go on a bro podcast, and I kind of just like, I'm really busy with all these wars and stuff.
There might be demons.
I think that
aliens.
that tab on the Pentagon website that we built, and with all these files that we're pushing out there, it's really talking about demons. And
but
then
enough
you just
about
leave
that.
it. Then you just leave it. You just like
Let's
drop
talk about
that
my
and
book.
walk away.
Yeah,
let's talk about my book. And the people, maybe Rogan got a little bit into it, but there's no pushback. There's absolutely no one stops and goes, you are vice president of the United States. You cannot say something like that without really explaining what exactly do you mean. And they don't. They never do. And I think a lot of religious people are in that category, actually, because I did that for years. I don't know if I asked you that, but I think it was about 15 years ago. I'm like singing at church, and I started thinking about it and was like, what the heck is an alien? Is an angel? And I started asking all kinds of religious leaders and people, even just Christians, like, do you believe in angels? Every single one of them said yes.
Yeah.
And then I say, well, what exactly do you mean when you like, what exactly is that? And every single one of them would just like, I don't know. But I believe it. I believe in angels, but I don't know if I could really tell you what that actually means. Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Do you believe in angels?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm worried you're going to follow it up with what are they? I'm hesitant to say yes.
Is it the first time you really thought about it though? And like, that's odd. Your whole life people talked about angels. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, you don't know. Honest
But
answer, if you could rewind and
Yeah.
or yesterday, what would you have said if I just brought it up?
I
What
think-
is an angel?
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I might think it's something like, well, probably I would frame it more like, usually I use like our glitch in the simulation type language. So yeah, let's rewind it to yesterday. And you ask me what angels are. I might say something like, well, whatever we're in, it's kind of like an IT support, like somebody remotes in. And so like, yeah, are there angels? Well, yeah, like people groups all over the planet for all these generations of civilizations have referred to things like angels and demons in this spirit world. There's got to be something to that.
Yeah, it's either a thing or it's not a thing.
Right. And it seems like nobody seems to, or like so many groups have come by it independently that it seems like, well, that's got to be a thing. Like thoughts have people.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes I think about spiritual stuff like, for like maybe think like an angel is, a thought overwhelming a person and that person acting benevolently to another person at the right time when they needed it. Right. So like I said, yesterday, that would have probably been the answer.
So it sounds like your interpretation would be very, pretty non-mystical.
Yeah.
Your interpretation would be like, well, I think when these things happen, a synchronicity pops up in the matrix, people are going to attribute a lot of meaning to stuff, and maybe it's just kind of how shit happens, and it's not that mystical or magical.
Well, and it's not to say it's not mystical, because I'm big with like lately you've been bringing the thought up of like, what is it with us humans that we like standing in rooms and singing songs, and we want to stare at other people singing songs? That's a weird thing. So I think there's something that we don't understand to it, but yeah, like in a more materialist sense, I'm like, well, I think the mechanics of it are possibly like whatever it is about us that likes standing in rooms singing songs, that same thing likes to put ideas in our head. And if we are attentive and we act on positive ideas, then like that to me is like more like how angels operate. And same thing for demons. Like, if you're under the influence of some kind of substance and you're thinking very short term, like acts of greed, lust, envy, all of those things, like so many people come out of a fog of rage and go, I can't believe I was just so violent with this person. Right. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's like, well, I think that's what it looks like day to day as far as like spiritual warfare, angels and demons. People are overtaken by these thoughts.
But you're thinking of it like,
yeah, you're right. I'm not thinking of it
is coming from the person. I think that the traditional understanding of like the demon influence or the angelic influence is that they're influencing us. And so like that guy that flips out in a fit of rage, I think a lot of people look at it like on some level you're being influenced by a demon, and like you're not even really in control of what you're saying and doing. And I think on an extreme level, that is what a lot of, demonic possession, that's what they would say, is that this, I mean, it's really weird because you look into the history of it, like angels and demons. Remember we used to watch those Professor Brother videos? And anyway, any dads out there, if you want to get a real laugh, Professor Brother had about 15 years ago, early YouTube had some peak just biblical cartoon. It's very offensive if you're a Christian, but hilarious. But in they do the story of Lot. And then
he was a friendly little fella would caper about.
And in the story, he talks about he's visited by two sexy angels, and then the crowds wanted to have sex with his sexy angels. And
please do not.
It'll be a lot funnier if you watch it and then you hear Dave's quotes.
I'm getting the link so that I can. But put
anyway,
it in the show
point
notes.
is, in that biblical story, these angels take on a human form. They visited Lot, and the crowds saw them as beautiful dudes.
Like those Nordic angels or those
Yes,
Nordic aliens.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, what is an angel? It seems like a lot of times it's a non-physical thing, according to Lot in the Professor Brothers.
As I'm pulling it up, I'm seeing the
dude.
playlist of all these great Professor Brothers videos. Continue.
Are you gonna play a clip?
No, I'm getting it just so I can get the link so I can save it for later because I do
I
want.
think we get a copyright strike if we.
No,
I wish we could go back. to
you're right. I
98
don't.
when we could
Yeah,
play
we
this
used
shit.
to could do that. Yeah.
But
Please do not F my sexy guest. Is that what he says?
something like that. And then he goes at the end of it.
Yeah, that's it. The first comment is, "No one can F my strange guests." That's the quote.
And then at the end, he's talking about them running away and not looking back for fear of being turned into pillars of salt or some other spice.
The number 2 comment is, "This is one of my favorite Jordan Peterson's talks." Like,
really?
I guess just that the voices sound like Jordan Peterson.
Oh, that's funny. No, because Peterson did biblical a whole lecture
Oh,
on
that's right.
actually. And it's like you could overlay those two.
Oh my
and
gosh.
as offensive as the Professor Brothers' take on it is, it's also hilarious because it's biblically accurate.
The Professor Brothers Bible History #1 parentheses Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the
Oh, my
name of the
gosh.
episode. But goodness gracious, I love that so much.
That was epic when that came out. But so what is an
What
angel?
is an angel? That it's a sexy guest.
It's a sexy Nordic dude that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Or what? What on earth is the vice president of the United States doing talking about this shit? That's my question. Like it's such a. It sounds ridiculous and crazy for us to say it, but I just feel like I need to pause and say, I'm calling balls and strikes. I'm not the one saying this. Our leaders are saying this, and we're all asleep. We're just like, that's interesting. And we're not holding anyone's feet to the fire to say, you got to explain what you mean when you say that, Mr. Vance. Like you can't, I would not let him get away with that. I'd say, you give me a definition of what a demon is. You tell me, and then you show me exactly what evidence you have that that's what this is. When your Pentagon is saying these lights in the sky over here, we think that might be what that is. I'm not saying that any of that's even wrong. That could actually be correct, but it just blows my mind that nobody is held to like actually explain themselves. And they're saying the absolute most extreme things you could possibly say in the most flippant way. And again, back to the dentist office, I'm like ranting at all these hygienists. And it's like, that's what I'm trying to say is that like, you guys should, the fact that none of you care, no one cares.
Oh, man,
I'm not wrong to point out that these are like really extreme things to say, that our leaders that we pay a lot of money to like protect and lead us, that they're saying these things and that we have no evidence. We do not get to see the T-Rex. We are in the dark. They're just telling us, believe us and give us your money and do what we say. And at what point are we going to say, no, you cannot say that without some sort of evidence. They need the angels to like, or if that's what's going on, oh my God.
Right.
Like, you're like, seriously, like, oh,
but I don't think we believe it. I think those girls in the dentist office are going, hey, bro, this is kind of fun to talk about, but we got a 10:30 coming in. So we got to like prep for this filling.
That's the system. I
the
know I
other
sound like a
thing
nut,
is like,
but
I mean, far be it for me to push back on you about how you would interact with JD Vance, but I mean, Rogan didn't even push back much. I mean, like part of what makes him such an adept interviewer and gain access to people like JD Vance is the fact that he's got the wherewithal to like kind of like just let them talk and then let people like us comment on it. So like, I think part of how people like JD Vance, we were talking about in the last episode, he's an excellent politician. He can navigate those conversations without you even realizing that we now, like, he just said demons are real, and now we're back to talking about his book. Like,
yeah,
they're so they're so good at navigating that stuff that like they know how to quickly change the subject to get you back onto like, well, I am curious about when these gas prices are going to go down, because that actually is something I'm thinking about today.
It's a hell of a time to be alive.
It's nuts.
It is. I remember talking to a bunch of old timers at church once, and I was asking them like, man, do you just turn 40 and you just start to realize how crazy the world is? And it's just like, when you were young, you just didn't notice it? Or you're in your 80s, is it really that crazy now? And his response was great. He goes, well, when I was scooped up out of school and thrown into an airplane and they dropped me over Germany to shoot a bunch of Nazis, that was pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy, yeah.
So I was like, fair enough. I think it's been crazier, but it's a different kind of crazy.
Man, you think about other times and things that are crazy and things tied to this. Yesterday, I listened to Annie Jacobson on Danny Jones.
I listened to a few clips. I find her delivery insufferable. I like the content of what she's saying, but the way she says it is always like, she's kind of reminds me of Lou Elizondo, in that like, I can't lie and say that I think you sound like you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the way that you're saying it, even though I don't know if you are or not.
I'm with you that I like the content of what she's saying, but I definitely I try not to be too strong, positive or negative about her when I'm telling somebody about her, because she's got a pretty specific delivery, and she can sound, she can be polarizing, just like you said, like Sean Ryan's a guy I would put in that camp of like, you feel some kind of way about him immediately when you hear his voice. You know what I mean?
It's because his name's not actually Sean Ryan, and he's actually a CIA contractor. But
I digress. Oh crap! Now I lost my train of thought about Annie Jacobson. We were talking about.
What was she saying on Danny Jones?
That's what I was trying to remember. I shouldn't have brought up Sean Ryan.
Well, I do know that he had somebody else on there recently who was actually he's been declassified. He was somebody who supposedly worked at Area 51.
I saw that. I didn't check it out yet.
He was pretty hard on Jacobson, and that like he said she just, she writes a lot about like back when we were building these SR-71, like a lot of these aircraft that they would put on like monkey suits and fly these craft around, but it was so that if any other airline or fighter pilot saw them, they would come back and be like, oh my God, there was gorillas flying this plane, and everyone would just laugh and think. And she wrote about it like that was an intentional psyop, and it was like they did that on purpose. And this guy was like, no, somebody had some gorilla suits and they thought it'd be funny, and so they did it. And it's like, nobody gave us orders to do that. We were just goofing off. And it was like, okay, well.
Who was it? Maybe it was Kokomo, or maybe it was you, or Kokomo told both of us about one of their pilot buddies that would fly over their in-laws' house in their fighter jet just to piss off their in-laws. So I'm kind of like, these pilots, they might just put on gorilla suits just to goof on other pilots.
Both are believable, I think. Honestly, I could see, again, MK Ultra, like to what extent would we, do these extreme psychological mass manipulation things? I mean, we've done a lot. The Grateful Dead, that's all a CIA operation. I mean, just in and out LSD and getting all the hippies.
Isn't that crazy that the counterculture thinks of LSD as like their thing? And you're like, we owned 100% of the LSD. By we, I mean the U.S. government.
We bought it all.
The U.S. government distributed that to the counterculture
through Grateful Dead, and a lot of these other artists, all of the Laurel Canyon people. If you just read David, what's his name, McGowan's book on the Laurel strange things in the canyon, I think it's called Weird Scenes in the Canyon, and so it seems. Oh, that's kind of crazy. Why would they do that? You're like, I don't know. Why would they give Charles Manson a bunch of LSD to, run a cult and murder a bunch of people in Hollywood? Well, to discredit the anti-war movement, and to, same reason that, what's his name? the Doors, Jim Morris, why would he become the poster boy for that when his dad is literally the guy that started the Vietnam War by lying to Congress? Well, it's controlled opposition. And
that, I mean, maybe I just got to get the thought out so I can tie a bow on it in my own head. But that Jacobson interview, she's talking about Stalin was fascinated with that War of the Worlds broadcast.
Yeah.
And,
which Corbett covers a lot in How to Fake an Alien Invasion, so that's why it's definitely relevant.
Yeah. So, but she was just talking about Russia had a plan they wanted to bomb us, but they knew that if they tried to bring planes in, we would we'd spot them too quick. So they flew in something that looked like. They flew in something else that was more of like a cloak and dagger, sort of like distract them with this first ship that looks like an alien craft, dress the people up in gorilla suits or alien suits, get their attention on that so it would bog down the phone lines like it did during this War of the Worlds broadcast. And then we'll actually move in with the real attack, but send in some kind of a Trojan horse.
Something to disrupt the communication ability.
Tie that into whatever we're talking about, however you will. I just wanted to get out. Like it bothers me when I listen to podcasts and the guy gets distracted and then never resolves it.
Well, it's ADHD. Sorry. No, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, and that's really the thing that I think Corbett is trying to. There's a lot of points he makes in that documentary, but the core thing is that people don't realize that War of the Worlds broadcast was an intelligence operation, and it was funded by people interested in studying us. It wasn't for entertainment. It was to study how we would respond to something like that. And they got a lot of intelligence out of that. And, also, and this might be what's going on. I've thought this for a long time. If you think about the Cold War and the space race, allegedly, and what was going on there, Russia's watching the same YouTube that we are. Like China's like, when our senators and our military leaders go out and they're talking about UFOs and they're talking about aliens, all of our adversaries are watching that too. And then they got to ask themselves, is that real or is that fake? And it's presented as very real. So maybe that's what's going on. And maybe this is the modern War of the Worlds, playing out. And like, well, how much money is Russia spending researching UFOs? Because we put out all this stuff about UFOs, and behind the curtain, it's like, it's not even a thing. But these idiots, they're spending a lot of time and energy chasing after. It'd be frustrating then if you're Russia and you're like, God, we don't see UFOs flying over Moscow. Like maybe let's keep looking.
And it does generate a lot of economic value in terms of like it's content creation these days. Yeah. Like it's, again, Danny Jones, Joe Rogan. We're not generating a lot of economic, weight, but like we're riding on the coattails of some of these larger podcasts and news organizations and like so many others that are like, there's an engine behind it. And you're right. Like I hadn't thought of it as like something to distract our adversaries, but like, well, that'll help me sleep a little better at night.
Fun to go over to Moscow and just like go into a park and like just ask people what they think about it, and
I love the idea of Russians being frustrated while we're just, and like that's to me like the most positive spin I can think of. Like girls in a dentist office carry on with their interviews or with their appointments while you and I buddies chat about it on a podcast. That's relatively benign. Hopefully Russia's spinning their wheels, not getting much done as a result of all this.
Or it'd be funny to go over there and they'd be like, oh, it's clearly a psyop. Like we don't believe any of that.
I do think that Russians inherently are better chess players than Americans oftentimes. So like they're probably hip to it, but I like bringing this, like landing the plane with the idea that maybe that's what we're doing. Maybe we're so sophisticated, we're just distracting our adversaries.
Well, to button up this podcast, I guess then the question to you would be, where do you land on the odds of it being a psyop? Like all of this, is it a thing or is it not a thing?
I think it's not a thing.
Really?
And part of that is because of this Annie Jacobson thing I listened to yesterday about biological warfare. And so, like, whether, excuse
Wait a
me.
minute. By a thing, you think it's not a psyop?
No,
Or
I
you're
think it
saying
is a psyop. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, when you said, is it a thing? I thought you meant, like, are aliens a thing?
Yeah.
I'm like, not in the way the government is disclosing it. It's not a thing.
Vance is telling, he's right. They're demons. They're sexy dudes.
I think that the way you kind of tie in this War of the Worlds, like, we're kind of living in a present day version of that. We're using the most current form of mass media, the internet, YouTube, podcasts, whatnot, to, like, spread this idea out there and get everybody fixated on it, while the government's going to war with Iran and doing whatever else they're doing.
It's a healthy distraction, yeah.
Yeah, or while, like I said, I don't have any specific thoughts on it exactly, except for it just presented a new idea of, like, the comment Annie Jacobson made when I was listening yesterday was like, she's got the book on the nuclear fallout that's like kind of a hybrid of fiction / nonfiction, like, what if scenario. Well, this new book she's got is biological warfare. And one of the comments she made is like, the nuclear fallout is like the most devastating in terms of, like, our civilization. But the biological one is, like, the more likely of the two. So, somewhere in that podcast, I got the idea, and I think it's because one of them mentioned, like, they would like for us to be distracted so that we're not focused on, like, how likely a biological, warfare could be implemented. So, man, we were like, I was feeling real good thinking about the Russians scratching their head about our podcast. But anyway, that's something to chew on as well. But yeah, like, when you say, is it a thing? Is it not a thing? I do think it's a psyop to distract us, whether, again, either it's to distract us about what's going on overseas.
Well, do you think too, and then I guess it's the third possibility, I mean, is there truth mixed within the psyop? There's like, have aliens visited Earth? Meaning a physical, biological, intelligent creature from another planet, has it been to Earth? That could be true. And also mixed in with that, it's like, well, we know that's true. Maybe we don't have anything we can really do about it, but let's just mix it in with all this other crazy nonsense so that, again, the Russians are spinning their wheels trying to figure it out, and there's really nothing there in the first place. Or what's there is irrelevant, because what if an alien visited Earth 10,000 years ago and stopped here, made some pyramids, and then flew away, and now it's just some empty pyramids, and you go like, well, that's great. They visited here. There's nothing you could do with that. There's no information. It's just they were here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess my thoughts are similar. I think it's definitely, there's a psyop going on. I think it's obvious that there's, like, again, the T-Rex analogy, like, if there was a T-Rex, they just show us a T-Rex. There's no reason not to. And when they keep dancing around it for decade after decade, it's like, okay, we're obviously just jerking us around. At the same time, people have been, visited by what is it, angels and demons? I mean, I think it's hard to pretend like that phenomenon doesn't exist in the human experience. It's definitely a thing, but I also think I don't know what the heck that even means. I don't know. I've been asking that question for 15 years, and I've never gotten a solid answer. I've gotten a lot of answers that are, vague, and I really don't think, back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the last podcast, is like, I don't think we really understand what's going on. I wish we did, but I think there's a lot of reality that is completely just, we take it for granted, but we don't really understand how we got here. What is consciousness? What are we doing? And all of these weird things, at the very least, I could say, a lot of weird things have happened in the human experience that we can't explain. And until we understand even, like, what this is, like, how is this? There's been estimates of 1 to 10 billion species of living organisms that have lived and gone extinct on this planet prior to us getting here. And then humans come along and we're intelligent, and as far as we can tell, there's maybe ancient civilizations that were lost, but as far as we can tell, we're the only thing that's intelligent for as far as the eye can see. I mean, at least you could say even on Earth, you could go like out of 10 billion, we're the only ones that are intelligent, and we don't know why. We have no idea why. There's all kinds of theories about why, but I mean, nobody's, that's what they're trying to do with AI, but I think it's smoke and mirrors. I don't think that AI is like truly conscious. I really don't. I think that if you didn't talk to it, it would just sit there and do nothing. And anything that it is doing, it's all pre-programming. It's not what's happening in silicon. It's not the same as what's happening in the wet, mushy quantum biological thing that's in your head. It's just not the same thing. So until you understand this, I think there's a lot of these questions that, you think about alien or angelic encounters. If you don't really truly understand even what consciousness is, all of that it's almost like fuzzy signals
right.
I don't know. We don't even know how the radio works. So how can you interpret these signals that are coming in if you don't know how the freaking thing actually works or turns on? We just know it does turn on.
Yeah. We don't know how emails are sent.
We don't. We just send emails.
Yeah.
So anyway, good podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.